Hi, welcome to this discussion video blog about justice. This is for my class of philosophy of 2020, and today we're going to be discussing many, and I mean many people that gave a discussion in history about justice, my views today, and some of the fallacies that I believe a lot of people have made when it comes to justice. So, I think to better understand what happens in justice, I think, as with a lot of things, we need to be exceptionally careful about what we talk about. Like, for example, in history. Let me give you an example. When we see the case of, let's say, Julius Caesar and his assassination by the liberators, as they were so called, there are some fine lines between justice and injustice. And that's because we can never have a 100% true definition of justice, because it really depends on the perspective that many people have about it. For example, in Dante's Inferno, the guy who killed Julius Caesar, Brutus, ended up in the very center of hell, being chewed on by the devil for the years to come. So he's seen as a bad guy. However, if you ask other authors, such as the one that wrote Gulliver's Travels, he wrote Brutus as if he was one of the nicest people he've met. So it really depends. We can take this example of Julius' assassination as a way to see how our system is based upon the perspective of each party and not about the overall truth. But now let's see some examples of many different interpretations of justice. Now I'm going to show you one that I believe has a little bit of a misconception. Well, not misconception, but it would be mostly about a way to see a fallacy, for example. The example is from Eleanor Roosevelt. She says, "Justice cannot be for one side alone, but must be for both." Now, on the surface, that sounds like actually a good thing, because you say, oh, justice must be for both because both need justice. The problem is that if we think about it, then it really crumbles. Because let's say, for example, we're going to take a historical example again, the Allies versus the Axis powers. Now, these guys are really interesting because depending on who would have won, the history and justice by itself would have been very different. Right now, in the world that we live today, justice in this case was seen as people beating the Nazis and establishing world peace everywhere. Again, it's world peace, so, makes sense. However, if the Nazis would have won, and that's a big if because they never would have won, but that's another topic, we can definitely say that justice would have been very different, because then people would be prosecuted by just being themselves, for being Jewish, gay, trans, communists, a lot of things. Could have been prosecuted for many things. But see, that's the thing. There can't be justice for everybody, because there are going to be some people who, even though we believe it's justice, they're going to believe it's injustice. They're going to fight teeth and nail and blood in order to prove that they are in the injustice of the society, even though there is no justice in their point of view. And that's kind of a fallacy that a lot of people think, that justice is exceptionally for everyone, when actually there are many cases where we need to actually set a perspective in order to have a good point. Now I'm going to show you I'm going to tell you actually some points that I do believe make a lot more sense than this one. I mean, that one does make sense, but it doesn't clarify our intentions. So, for the first one is going to be Aristotle. Aristotle says, "The only stable state is the one in which all men are equal before the law." Now, Aristotle is obviously a very important person. He has made a lot of basis for our philosophy today and the philosophy of many people. And in this statement, he basically says that everyone needs to be equal above the law. No one above. Everyone needs to be below it, because that's the maximum degree. Now, has our justice system followed this example? we can't say that it has. Why? There have been many cases by either politicians, celebrity, or people from police force, for example, that have been exempt from the law just because of their status. Let's give an example. There was this case, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific case because, this happens almost every day. But let's take, for example, one of the killings that happened between a police officer and an African American. Now, on normal scenarios, this would be a very bad issue because, a police officer killing an unarmed innocent man, how horrible. But then when you see the news, you discover that, that police officer said that it had to be done and they did it to the best of their ability. And that doesn't make any sense, right? Because they did end up killing an innocent man. But they're exempt from the law because they're just police officers. Now, I don't need to tell you why this is obviously a bad thing. A system that does not work shouldn't be a system because it still needs to be proofread and basically checked in order to see if there are any consequences of having so many issues. But we have this system and it's the best we've got because we honestly don't have anything else. Now, can we say that this is actually the best we can do? No, absolutely not. But we need to understand that a system that makes justice prevail needs to be equal for everyone, and that would mean taking out the human part, because we as humans are by nature greedy and look out for only ourselves. So we need a system that would take out the human error of being able to say whatever we want, whenever we want, and being able to be, corrupted. Secondly, we need a system that not prevents, but actually just analyzes cases by the way of the individual, and not as a general. Because if we say, he's a robber, it can mean many things. It can be, he stole food for his family. He stole money because he wanted to. It's two very different cases. You might say, but he still, robbed, but, I'm pretty sure that no one would have an option if you were poor and you decided to have, a case for going and eating something in order to live and make your family live. It's very complicated. Now, I hope that this video has actually helped you in understanding the difficulty of this scenario. And as always, I expect that you have a wonderful day. This has been Max, signing out.